Greetings, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Hired Geek Podcast, episode number 146, with Dr. Aditya Nagrath, who is running Elephant Learning and working to help build learner confidence through his Mathematics Academy. So really interesting conversation, kind of relates more to how students are prepared as they come into higher education in their K through 12 years, but definitely just some larger implications about kind of the context of learner confidence and kind of just the foundational relevance of mathematics nowadays as data becomes more interwoven into all disciplines, and just the ways that we can help students as they go through their primary schooling to be more confident and to have kind of more understanding of the lingo and language of mathematics. So he's doing great work. It was great to talk about it with him and hear a little bit about his story and his work and how he approaches everything. So definitely go check out him, connect with him, keep the conversation going, and check out Elephant Learning and what they're up to. But without further ado, this is episode number 146 with Dr. Aditya Nagrath. All right, everybody, we are here as the podcast goes on. I'm excited to kind of continue to explore the broader context and environment that higher ed finds itself in. It's not an island, never has been, and connects directly to, the world of work and K through 12 and the communities that they are a part of. So our conversation today kind of goes more on kind of the earlier side in the pipeline that we find students kind of going through as they prepare for and enter college. So super excited to learn more myself, and I know you all will as well. But we will start out as we always do with our guests introducing themselves and giving a brief overview of their professional journey and how they got to be where they are today.
My name is Dr. Aditya Nagrath. I've got a PhD in mathematics. I've worked at companies like Dish Network, Timing Solutions, Pearson. I've worked on projects ranging from IoT to embedded Linux to web to basically anything with the chip. I've written software for it. Got a PhD in math and computer science in 2008. From there, started my own contract software engineering firm. And in 2016, started looking for a new venture. And in doing so, discovered that that 4 out of 5 students actually start kindergarten unprepared for the kindergarten curriculum. And so me and another professor of mathematics basically designed a system to quickly teach children mathematical language and actually, get them to be able to understand the teacher in the classroom. And we actually started with counting, but we've gone all the way through algebra, basically with the goal that we could take someone at university level in maybe a calculus course or a statistics course and get them enough language that they can participate in the classroom.
Yeah, and I know it's one of those areas where, and we'll get more in depth with this, just like math can be hard for a lot of people, and it's an area that people can be intimidated by and, just not have a lot of confidence in. So, I can imagine just a very worthwhile area to focus on. So I guess, your venture here, Elephant Learning, this Math Academy, if you just want to explain a little bit, just for everyone's understanding, like a little bit about what your team there does, like sort of what is your sort of methodology?
Yeah, so I'll talk about the mathematics and not the marketing and software development and et cetera.
Sure.
But basically, we focus on teaching mathematics as a language. It's what in higher education you would call conceptual learning. So in the education departments, that's what they're calling it. And but we found it easier to explain to people as the language of mathematics, because really what the conceptual mathematics is doing is it's treating mathematics like another jargon, and everybody learns jargon for work. But it treats it like a jargon, and it teaches that to the children. So when we looked at the research coming out of higher education on the most effective ways to teach these ideas to children, they come out as activities. And the reason why is because teaching mathematics as a language is sort of like teaching the colors to a child. They have to actually kind of see it But in this case, we're talking about an idea. So like if you're teaching your child red, you show them a red truck, you show them a red ball, you show them a whole bunch of red things, you label the red, and they infer that the color is what you mean by red. Um, like for young children, you'd show them different quantities of things and let them touch them and count them, and then be able to label that as a certain number, like three. I have three cars, and then they start to pick up that the quantity is what you're speaking about. But it doesn't stop there, because there's all the ideas that are surrounding the quantities, such as the idea of more or less, which is addition, subtraction, and like being able to kind of understand the different representations for it. So like beyond physical objects, sometimes we represent it on a line, or we represent them in grids. And so like that's really kind of what it is. And we use the research as far as it went, but we're both math professors. So from there, we started designing what would be our own curriculum, again, with the goal of just, can we get the kids to understand the teacher in the classroom? Because the research, and like philosophically this is true, but the research showed that if the student understood the teacher in the classroom, then the outcome is better.
Yeah, and I guess like just to make sure I have the understanding clear, like so you see it as like supplemental, maybe kind of like tutorial, you know, math instruction versus like that this would be like replacement for what a student would learn in their like, K through 12 classroom or something.
So like first of all, it's experiential. So like they
Mm-hmm.
get a puzzle and they have to solve the puzzle, and that's how we get the student to exhibit the idea. Now, like again, right, they just have to do it enough times that when we're speaking about it, they start to understand, oh, when they're talking about 5 plus 4, they're talking about the idea of give me 5 things, give me 4 more things. How many do I have now? And so, like, as we're giving them those experiences, but we are also giving the teacher and the parent language that they can then use that connects back to the student. So, like, for example, if I'm working with my student um, and he was having issues with 5 plus 4, that's what I would say. Is I'd say, well, that's give me 5 things, give me 4 more things. How many do I have now? And since he played that within the app, he has that experience. He knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I mean, that makes a lot of sense, and yeah, I think, like you said, for parents and for teachers, being a great kind of tool that they can use to hopefully kind of augment what they're doing. But I guess just to kind of make the problem more clear, like from your point of view, like what do you see as like the impacts of students' lack of success in a subject like math? Because it is, very foundational, and students are, taking math courses throughout their entire educational journeys, to some extent. So, sometimes they can definitely get kind of stuck up on certain concepts if they don't have like the language like you're talking about and everything. So, what do you see as like those impacts?
Well, I mean, the impacts are kind of huge. So, like, if you want to measure it economically, what we know is that eighth grade mathematics predicts whether you'll drop out of high school. And in 2007, a study was done by Congress, and they found that I think 320 billion was the number, $320 billion of lost lifetime wages from people that didn't graduate high school in 2007. This doesn't count people that are going to switch majors. So, for example, at the university level, like we've seen this all the time. We will see students switch out of engineering. We'll see them switch out of STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, due to the mathematics requirements. And they'll typically switch to business. But these days, because business is so data driven, statistics becomes very important for the subject matter that they're starting to teach. And they're even switching out of business now, and they all switch to humanities. So this crisis that we're having with student debt is partially caused by the lack of mathematics understanding of our students coming through high school. And I mean, in 2019, the NAECP statistics said that 75% of high school students are not proficient at high school mathematics. So, like, for the universities and the schools in this country, I mean, it's almost like a survival question, because, like, as a species, we're moving more towards data which means that we're moving more towards mathematics and understanding the ideas of mathematics. I mean, computer science is a branch of mathematics. Engineering would be a branch of mathematics. It's an applied mathematics field. You see what I'm saying? So like, these are the impacts. Now, like, these happen to also be where the high paying jobs are. I mean, and it's not a coincidence. The United States government takes up the military budget year over year, funding most of the companies that are hiring the smartest engineers to design airplanes and missiles, and Raytheon and Boeing and all these guys. They're getting that defense money. So like, I mean, it's not going away, at least as far as I could see.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean that's a good way to put it. Just like all those uh, fields being like applied mathematics, because that's true. And I mean, it's funny because like what you're saying is exactly an experience I've had been witnessing. Is that my wife just started a job a few months ago as an academic advisor for business students, and uh, yeah, it's been just like this, sort of trying to think of the right colorful metaphor, but just sort of this hurdle for so many students is these like math classes, because they just, yeah, like maybe we're best set up for success. And, they're trying to evaluate other options and everything because, if they can't pass calculus or, whatever course it is, then they can't move on, in the business curriculum and everything. So
But
that's
this is
definitely one
kind of the
clear example.
challenge,
Yeah.
because like everyone comes to me, and calculus is the example. And the challenge, I guess, is that differentiation and integration. It just appears to be so underused, right? Like they say, when are you ever going to use this? Because like really, it's kind of brushing with infinity. But at the same time, again, these ideas are kind of everywhere out there. Like in the financial world, options are called derivatives because they actually behave like a functional derivative to the stock. You see what I mean? So like, if you can understand the idea in mathematics, then you can understand the idea in finance, then you can understand the idea if it comes to biology or physics or whatever it may be that you're trying to do with the differentiation, right? And so like, can I answer to you, when are you going to use differentiation or integration in your profession, right? And this is like the main argument that a student has, like, right? Like, when am I going to use this? Like, look, I can't tell you that, but here's what I can tell you. If you don't understand the idea, you never are going to use it. It's actually a tool to help you solve problems. So you either want the tool or you don't want the tool.
Yeah. Sounds like some very good tough love for folks, because yeah, I think that is always like a retort to students, is just like, oh, what's the point, like when am I going to use this, whatever. It's like, there you go, there's your response.
Someone asked me the other day that, have you ever had to use differentiation while you were coding? And I said, that completely depends on what I'm coding. If I'm coding the physics for a gaming engine, yeah, potentially. You know what I mean? If I'm taking data in and out of the database, yeah, probably not. But like, again, the university's job is to provide you with tools. And the thing is that like having calculus maybe as a prerequisite is sort of I mean, as a mathematician, I feel like it's necessary, because like there's some very beautiful ideas in there that are necessary for human beings. But like, for example, in computer science, when you're analyzing the algorithms, it's very rare for you to have to use differentiation or integration. You use logarithms, which is, they typically teach that in calculus, but it's a different idea. So like, uh, I don't know if it's like it should be a prerequisite, but like, I mean, again, why not provide the students with tools? Like these tools, they're extremely useful when you can figure out when to apply it, but the only way you're going to do that is to try.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think this is really good, because I think you've like given really tangible examples of like, yeah, I mean, like it is, unfortunately, I think it's kind of maybe just like a crass turn of phrase, but it like, at times is time wasted for students, which can accumulate debt if they're, pursuing down a path with a degree plan. And because they can't get through calculus, they have to change and things might not transfer and all that. And then also just the lack of qualified candidates getting to employers that need people with these skills and everything. So there's really clear kind of dots being connected here of like the impact, the outcomes of students not having these skills mathematics. But so students are engaging in the work that you're doing. On the other side, like how do you see your work kind of just like supporting broader learner confidence? Because I think, like I said, like my anecdotal point of view would be that so many students just feel like they're quote unquote dumb because they don't get math, and that it has to be just sort of baggage that they're carrying around that's sort of weighing them down just generally as they're in learning environments, whether that's in K through 12 or in college. So do you see your work kind of just helping kind of unlock those things and kind of remove some of that weight?
Most of the work that we're doing is sort of working with math anxiety. I mean, the first way that you resolve math anxiety is you get the student to understand the ideas, because once they've understood the ideas, those ideas are no longer scary. People are not typically scared by ideas. And the emotions that we feel are real. I mean, like there's like people are sometimes are crying, people sometimes are very angry, sometimes, right? Like the reaction um, to having to do it can be completely wide, right? But like if when you see the truth of it, right? Because at the end of the day, what we're talking about is a very precise philosophy. The thing is that like it's very satisfying for a human being to receive like actual truth. That alone does a lot. But a lot of the math anxiety is sort of our attitude towards mathematics, kind of as society or human beings or however you want to put it. Because, like, the analogy that we give now to parents and soon to teachers, if you treat our system sort of like a basketball hoop, you know what I mean? If you treat mathematics like a basketball hoop, so the gamification that we created was actually to turn mathematics into a game, right? Because then the idea of being wrong doesn't have an implication upon the human being, which is typically what's happening. I was wrong, that means I'm stupid. This guy over here gets it, but I don't get it, right? But like the truth is 75% of the classroom does not get it because they didn't receive the language coming into kindergarten. You see what I'm saying? So like there is no actual implication. And so therefore, right, like the idea is just, can you take a shot and can you be okay with the ball not going in? Now, if it's basketball, human beings treat it a lot different. It's just try again. But if it's mathematics and the student starts crying, they might say something like, oh, well, if you're going to cry, it's not worth it. Let me just take this away.
Yeah, it's an interesting metaphor. And I think, there's just, I think so much of an emotional piece here, as much as it is just like, very uh, specific, learning that's going on around mathematics, which can be, fairly precise and everything. But yeah, because I think like probably most people's like, if they have like a traumatic exam experience, it might be around something like mathematics, but then they just, carry that over to just have kind of test anxiety because they, had that difficult experience and everything. So,
it's
yeah,
just
it's
like
important to
everything
acknowledge
else in
that.
life. The scars of the parents come down to the children, even if they're trying to avoid it.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good point too. Yeah, whether it's like our own experiences of that of our parents and sort of their confidence, comfort around these things. Yeah, so there's definitely a lot to acknowledge there and to kind of empathize with and work through. And yeah, so I'm glad to just kind of give that a little space. But so obviously, like a big trend right now is in digital education, online learning, and everything. So given especially the past 2 years and even prior to that, I guess, like how does online learning factor into your strategy supporting students with this kind of knowledge acquisition?
Absolutely. So like, I mean, our technology is a software, and we deliver it via, again, gamification. To the student, feels like a puzzle game. The parents and teachers are getting very detailed reports, and actually teacher training at the student's level. And I think like that's kind of where I think the e-learning has to head, because like there's a lot of stuff out there that's just trying to be entertaining, and that's the challenge, right? The challenge is like if we're communicating to the student that this has to be entertaining in order for you to do it, then like if it's not entertaining, they don't have to do it. So now we got to make everything entertaining, right? But in reality, true learners, people who went and got PhDs like me, the learning is the reward. You see what I mean? Like solving the
Mm-hmm.
puzzle, that is the reward. right? And so like putting the ball in the hoop, that's the reward, right? Like that's why Michael Jordan became Michael Jordan's, because that was the reward to him. When the ball went in the hoop, he loved it. And so like really, if we can get our children to love learning for learning's sake, that's what we all want. Now, some of them have already gone down a path, and a lot of them are going to resist it because it's at first it feels like work. We human beings, might treat it like work. To us, it's actually work because we actually have to teach it to them. So, like, what do you do, right? But like, I think online, like the direction it's going to head is to become a tool for the teacher and the classroom to accomplish the goal, right? Like if it could become an arm rather than trying to automate, and if we focus on goals such as success rather than entertainment, then like I mean our software is effective in 10 minutes per day. And like my main thought was if the student only has to use it 10 minutes per day, then it doesn't really matter how entertained they are by it, because sooner or later that love of puzzles will develop. If they just use it 5-10 minutes a day, sooner or later they're going to get into how do I get the answer right? How do I put the ball in the hoop?
Yeah. Well, I guess like the gamification kind of helps with like it gives you just a very clear like learning path, like progression, that sort of thing. Yeah, it just makes it more like visual and tangible and everything. And then I think just generally like obviously online learning is going to be more uh, accessible and kind of you know allows for flexibility as well. So yeah, just a lot of benefits I think to having it kind of start as that software, and certainly could be you know utilized by students in a school in a computer lab, or students learning from home or anything like that. So there's definitely long list of
Our goal while creating this thing was literally it must run anywhere, because the mission was empower children with mathematics, and we didn't exactly know like where this would be run. Maybe it would be in a nonprofit on like Chromebooks. Maybe it would be on an iPad that's brand new. We just don't know, right? So let's make it so it can run basically everywhere.
yeah. Yeah, I mean that's a good point because yeah, it could be this like after school program or in a school yeah, or at someone's home, and yeah, just be
It could be Africa, and they could be powering their laptop with a solar panel. We don't know.
Well, yeah, and I think that's like the idea too, where like just with you saying that too, I don't like the idea of trying to keep it like fairly lean, like that idea of knowing it's like, well, okay, this could run on any number of like devices and operating systems and all that. Like, sometimes like uh, online learning, like there's a desire to like kind of just like make it chock full of media and all these different things, but like, you know, yeah, they could crash somebody's device if it's like,
There's just
on
so
the
many
border.
different ways that people have to think about, like, how do I monetize it? Most of this stuff for children, they're like they're producing the device. I mean, they're buying a device and then they're dressing it up, but like they're producing the device for the parent as well. You see what I mean? So like, we're just taking an opposite approach. Like, can we just be ubiquitous on what's out there so that the parent can just get their kid into it? Because to us, it is that important. Like,
Yeah. Well, I guess like like you're saying, like because there are things out there where it's like basically like a single use little like math learning tablet or something like so it's like, yeah, like we're trying to get people to buy this like piece of hardware that just like does a thing versus like, well, we could be like used
look
by anybody anywhere kind of thing. Yeah, like
for the investors, that brings the revenue up. You see what I mean? Like, the problem is that the business world, the way it's designed, the way, like, I mean, not like designed intentionally, but like the way it's kind of shaken out, right? Is that like when an investor gets into a company, they need the revenue to go up, even if there's not profit, and they need like the next round to be at a higher quote unquote valuation, because like they are a VC fund, meaning they collected human beings' money, saying, "Yeah, we're going to deliver you some sort of return on this money," right? So like, right, like so like they are going to say to a company or something, "Yes, why don't you produce like some sort of like a device of some sort, and like then your lifetime value of your customer will become this. It's just, again, a math game, right? So like you're seeing right there live how mathematics helps you with business.
Yeah, yeah. That was just sort of an unintentional, sort of application example there. But
Right. But
yeah,
that's
so
the current direction for the current reasons, right? So that's why I'm saying, like, if there are more business leaders out there who actually look at a mission where the mission is pointed, right? Empower children with mathematics, empower children with reading, or whatever, right? And you look at that and you start to measure the barometers of success for that, you would be producing actual value for human beings, in which case they will then pay you. So that's the philosophy that we're running our business on.
well, then, I think that's the natural segue, as we're kind of like winding down here. Yeah, you've committed to this work and it's an honorable mission. It's kind of just time well spent to support students with, their math learning and confidence and everything. So what are you looking forward to in your work, as you look towards the horizon?
Well, so we're actually just opening up for schools. I think this software will be released next week, but we got to undergo the testing. But basically, we're opening it up so that like a school can get this for all of the children inside of the school for just $1,000 per year. So basically, all of their teachers would be able to come into the wonderful teacher platform that we have now, which we've got several teachers like just kind of beating down our door saying like, we wish our school could buy this. And the hope is that like by doing that, we can bring in a significant number of schools so that they can start to show the success that the students are having.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that's awesome. That's got to be the name of the game for sure, is obviously the tool itself is accessible to students, that being, set up the way it is, but then, being able to kind of make all the dollars and cents work for school districts around the country and everything is also important. So yeah, that's great to hear. Well, then we always like to kind of give a tip of the hat if there's any resources, yours or otherwise, you feel like would be relevant for this topic that we could include in the show notes.
Yeah, there's some research from like the education department at the University of Denver to the importance of mathematics. It was a policy brief from 2013. I could send you the link. It's a PDF. I could also send you the PDF, but the link's probably better.
Yeah, I mean, I think having kind of that basis of research, yeah, definitely, always helps to kind of frame sort of an issue or kind of appropriate solutions and things. So appreciate you sending that along. But yeah, our last question is always just an opportunity for you to share a final thought or call to action on this topic to end the episode.
Sure. Yeah, if you want to learn more about elephant learning, just visit our website at elephantlearning.com. You can also find us on LinkedIn or Facebook. And yeah, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for your time and all that you shared. And we'll have ways to connect with you and your work there at Elephant Learning in the show notes as usual. But yeah, just a good conversation. I learned a lot. And yeah, just thank you again.
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of fun. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the podcast. Make sure to rate, review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode of the Higher Ed Geek podcast.